Thanks, folks. It's nice to be here. So I'm going to carry on the theme that Rich started and discuss experience, but I really want to share with you, in the theme of experience, some of the work we've been doing to build first in Canada and first in the world human-machine integration technologies at the University of Alberta with our collaborative team. And in particular, we're going to hear later on about machines that interact with the central parts of the human mind, and I'm going to give you a view into the periphery and how agents begin to interact with all other parts of the human body. So I'm motivating this really with the Internet of Bodies. So Megan Neal, back in 2014, wrote an excellent article in Vice called "The Internet of Bodies is Coming and You Could Get Hacked." We can have a conversation at coffee break on that. But really, we're entering an era where we can see technologies that are interacting with and connecting tightly to our body at all places, whether it's all of you now looking at your cell phones, different kind of smart and fitness rings, I know many of you have those, or bionic body parts, pacemakers, cochlear implants. We're now starting to see a highly connected Internet of Technologies. And within that, I think this is something that both Rich and I have talked about for a very long time, is that we're beginning to have the capacity to truly build what we might consider as an exocortex. This is a long-standing goal of our team, but really think of this as an external machine processing unit for the human body and the human mind that extends, amplifies, augments human ability to perceive their world, to act upon that world, and to make decisions, to think about that world. I'm not going to focus on the exocortex today. I do want to highlight, though, that Rich, if you had a very good attention span and you saw the 138 milliseconds of the standard agent, Rich was presenting to you a view of an agent. We do believe that a reinforcement learning agent is a key to having these external processing devices. Today, though, I'm going to try to show you concrete examples of something more concrete. This is our work over the last decade, examples of it, on how we've started to build what might be well considered an exocerebellum, the part of the brain that is now separated perhaps from the body in injury and illness, that allows people to control fine motor commands, being able to act on their world in a smooth and natural way, like those videos Rich showed of the falcon going through the tiny hole, or the soccer player making a very elaborate goal. So to do this, I'm going to show you key areas of work from our Bionic Limbs for Improved Natural Control Lab at the University of Alberta. We primarily work on upper and lower limb bionic devices, artificial limbs. Everything I'm going to show you today also extends to other devices, exoskeletons, smart walkers, rehabilitation assist technology. But today I'm going to specifically focus on our work enabling a new class of bionic technologies for people who've lost limbs due to injury or illness. And in particular, we're going to focus on three things. We're going to focus on changing the chassis. I'm going to talk to you about bone anchoring. We're going to talk about changing the wiring of the human body, revising the nerves of the body to better connect with technologies. And then I think the thing that connects most tightly to what Rich just shared, changing the glue, thinking about agents as the interface between a person and a machine. So all the work I'm going to share today is very collaborative work. This is not me saying, yeah, I just drilled something into humans' bones. That was not me. We have plastic surgeons. My clinical collaborator, Dr. Jacqueline Hebert, who I co-lead the lab with, was responsible for importing many of these surgeries into Canada. Again, first in Canada. So the first thing I want to share with you is something I think is very science fiction. I talked about changing the chassis. I'm going to show you examples of what's called bone anchoring in upper and lower limbs. Bone anchoring is the process of, to say it very casually, literally bolting robots directly into the human skeleton. So it's by process of osseointegration. For those who know about dental implants or even hip implants, we now have the capacity to be able to really nicely connect metal to bone. And in this case, I'm going to show you examples of how we can connect metal to bone in a way that changes the way a person interacts with the robotic technology so they can live their daily lives. This is an example. I'm going to show you part of David's story here. David lost his limb, his lower leg. And so here you can see David's computer-controlled robotic prosthesis. And you can see it connects, there's that little tiny sort of metal shunt that is going directly into the end of David's upper leg. And what I think is really cool here, just watch it in a second here, he's going to show you, he can just like you take the bike seat on or off a bike, can disconnect that robotic device from his body. And if you watch, he's going to do that thing where he wiggles the metal. So the skeleton is actually protruding by way of this metal attachment point and affixment point. I'll also say that we don't do this surgery in Canada. Health Canada didn't let us import this one. But you can also run wires directly through these implants. There's work in Sweden and now Ukraine to show that you can run wires through to directly connect to muscles and nerves in both directions by way of the body. Now, by contrast, this is how David would normally have put on a limb. He'd have to put on this socket and sort of try to force his way into a prosthesis, like a softly attached prosthesis. This is Matt. I'm going to show you, the nice thing about this kind of surgery is it allows very tight coupling, direct, immediate coupling of a person and their robotic devices to the point that they can do things they could never do before, like aggressive hiking, but also that they can begin to feel by way of their skeleton. It's called osseoception. If they step on a cord or on a rock, they can actually feel it by way of the metal that's now implanted into their bones. So that's the anchoring to the body. And I showed you that in part because it's like ridiculously cool, but also in part because it supports more advanced experience-based machine learning systems that support human life. So the second transformation I want to show you is targeted sensory reinnervation. The ability to rewire the nerves of the body. When someone has an amputation, there's a lot of nerves that would have gone to that amputated limb that are now currently doing nothing. I like to think of it like they're sort of like bored teenagers hanging out at the 7-Eleven, like playing with switchblades and lighting things on fire. They cause aromas, they cause trouble in the body, and they're not doing any good. Plastic surgeons, first in Chicago, found you can actually go in and restring those nerves, reattach them to muscles and skin to give them jobs to do. What's really cool about that is now the person who has that revision surgery can begin to think about closing, say, the hand they no longer have, and real muscles in their body will twitch, and you can touch them on the skin of their amputated limb, and they can feel it in the hand they no longer have or the arm they no longer have. It's creating new bidirectional pathways to and from the human body. This is miraculous. Our team at the University of Alberta, led by Dr. Jacqueline Hebert, in fact, showed some of the very first work on providing high-density sensation. Like you touch someone on the back of their arm here, they'd feel it like you were touching the knuckle of the hand they no longer have. You poke them here, they feel it in the tip of the finger they no longer have. Some of the most, I think, exciting work is, in fact, then on restoring not just the ability of someone to say, yeah, I can close and open my hand, I can feel what the hand's feeling, but also to feel the sense of movement and the sense of position and space of the limb that is now mostly made of metal and plastic and carbon fiber. This is one example from collaboration with Cleveland Clinic and the University of New Brunswick. This is a woman using a bionic limb and using that restoration of proprioception and kinesthesia to show with her other biological hand how she feels her hand closing. You can watch there's this nice congruence between how she is closing her robotic hand. So she's thinking about closing her hand. She's not trying to learn a new way of controlling a tool. She's actually trying to close her hand and showing you with that other hand how she feels that hand moving through space and where that hand is in space, her robotic hand. So, with this in mind, I really want to pitch the last piece of this, which is near and dear to my heart and a lot of my work over the last well over a decade and things Rich and I have done together for many years, which is to think about the agent as an interface, to think about the machine learning system, to think about the machine as not just a way to make the pipe between the person and the machine, but to think about the agent as the interface. It's really a multi-agent or a multi-system view on how we might begin to pursue a next generation of brain-body-machine interfaces. And again, with that standard agent that flicked on the screen for a few hundred milliseconds in Rich's talk, we can really start to believe that all of those signals of will and intent flowing from the human body by way of, say, their peripheral nervous system can be connected to all manner of assistive machines, especially artificial limbs, by way of an agent, a decision-making agent that receives reward, that can build models, that can build predictions of not just the person's intent, but of the world, of itself, of the changing context in the environment, of the experience. We've shown that you can, in fact, deploy agents like this, tens of thousands of highly scalable agents that live in the flow of experience between a person and a robotic limb. This is one example of a more advanced robotic limb. And in this case, we had 18,000 learning machines which were building up predictions about all aspects of this flow of experience, everything from where the motors might be in the future to what signals were coming in to the temperature of the different joints in that prosthetic hand. We also built systems that were able to then predict when the system might be wrong, to detect errors in that stream of prediction and be able to predict when those errors might occur. Again, tens of thousands of highly scalable agents that can live in the gap, the space, that invisible space between a person and a machine. We've shown that some of those agents can in fact be taught through reward. This is one example of Chris Nielsen, one of our patient research partners, who's experimenting with one of our very first examples of reinforcement learning for training a bionic limb. Here, Chris is actually trying to train that robotic limb. Think of that robotic limb on the desk as his left arm, and he is showing it what he wants to do with his right arm. And through process of reward, the system trying to match what he's doing, it's learning to interpret all of those novel signals flowing from muscle sensors on his residual limb, on that amputated left limb. We've also shown, not just this one we're learning through similarity, we've also shown that you can train a bionic limb controller by actually giving it reward, training it like you'd train a puppy. So in fact, just saying, yep, that was great, you interpreted the signals from my body really well, nope, that was bad. To be able to teach a system, multiple joints of a system, to interpret human biosignals and be able to adapt with response to specifically just a human's desires about how they want that limb to behave, something specific to them and their life and their needs. We further showed that all of those little predicting agents that I showed you before, those tens of thousands of agents, could be used to sculpt motion, to fill in the gaps so someone could have smooth, natural movement of their wrist. And as my last video here, I want to show you, again, a collection of agents, a distribution of agents. This is a video from our recent competition. We were in the Cybathlon, the 2024 Cybathlon, which is, think of it like the Rehabilitation Technology Olympics, an international competition. We were the only team to be able to qualify in the upper limb competition in North America, finished 8th in the world. And as our pilot Chris here likes to joke, he didn't have a biological elbow, unlike all those other cheaters who actually had their biological elbows. So Chris has a transhumeral amputation. So here, what's really nice here is that we have a system. It's our computation-grade limb system from the University of Alberta that we developed, an ultralight system with mechanical intelligence and customizability, with machine learning agents that are mapping Chris's intent from his limb to the wrist and elbow of his system, and mechanical electrical control systems that are controlling his ability to open and close his hand. So it really is a collection of agents. And here, this is one of the most stressful things, so I want us to watch this video. This is Chris doing what's the hot wire challenge. If that metal ring touches that metal wire, he fails this task, has to drop it and move on to the next task. And so if the audio was on, you'd hear the announcers from Switzerland were like, oh my goodness, this is so stressful. It is very stressful just to watch. So we're gonna watch through it. But what's nice here is that Chris is controlling, and he has to be very careful of how he moves his body. He has to be very careful of what signals he sends to the machines that are supporting him. I'll also say that there was a whole host of other continual machine learning agents that were running on his limb that we just weren't using. Everything's on board. There's an onboard single board computer on there. And yeah, Chris was actually doing this while systems were also just in the background making predictions about what he was going to do, how he might do it. Those weren't actually in the end turned online during this because we wanted to right size the use of machine learning in this competition environment. And he was like, oh my goodness, he can make it. He's like, I can hear you guys talking. See, there you can even say it. And then, yeah, he's off. And then, so this is, probably never thought, like all the other computing scientists get to cool things like computer poker tournaments. We actually have Rehabilitation Technology Olympics. So I'm going to close here and say that really what I'm trying to propose today, and what I think we have been pursuing, like our sort of our mythical beast we've been pursuing for most of the time of our lab, is to try to figure out how to really transform the science, the art of prosthetic restoration, all kinds of neuroprosthetic technologies, to move beyond encoding and decoding, trying to just to detect the patterns and classify them in the human mind, but to really think about an agentic ecosystem that exists within that internet of bodies that is now going to impact all of our lives, and and begin to think on how those agents may begin to create a system with emergent communication to really truly amplify human ability, human capacity, and transform human lives as we move forward into one of the most challenging times of human life. Hey, thanks so much.